Hello. Happy Friday, right? It's Friday? Should be Friday. I'm pretty sure it's Friday. I'm like 65% sure it's Friday. Pharma says, yeah, Friday. Yeah. So Ericer will not be here tonight, sadly. Other plans. Hopefully the Sharkies will show up. I know, I'm out of focus. Focus. Focus back here a little. Slate Reads is now live. Oh, choosing a new book to read, I need to update that. Maybe that did it. Maybe. Good evening, Atkinson 1020. How you doing? How's your week been? Hey, the Sharkies are here. Welcome, Sharkies. How's everyone's Friday so far? I'm a bit sleepy myself today. My sleep's been all over the place for the past week. You're a little under the weather, I think you probably meant. Sharkies have just finished dinner. Better. Did you have a tasty dinner? Oh. Yeah. Normally I try not to pick at autocorrects and things like that, but a little neuter the weather is. I didn't think what you meant. Well, I'm sorry you're not feeling well. So we've been reading Guards. We're not super far in. What would neuter to weather be? More bare than the weather? Yeah, I don't know. Going streaking, I guess. So we're just at about 76 pages into the book so far. Farmo says naked because of too warm. Although it has been getting a little cooler out. Today was nice here, though. It was pretty sunny. It wasn't super warm, but it wasn't cold either. We took the puppy and went shopping. Went to an outlet mall. I needed some new shoes. So I have, just this week, purchased 2 new pairs of shoes. One for just sort of everyday walking and running and whatnot, and one pair for Kung Fu. His head perked up when you said the puppy. The puppy? Where's the puppy? Oh, I hear movement. He poked his head around. I saw him for a moment, and then he was like, nope. Been a bic. I know how to draw him over. There he is. Hey, puppy. You want this snack? You gotta come over here where we can see you. Hey, hey, what? Ben. What? Oh no. Benedict. He's camera shy today, apparently. I'm sorry. No. Ah, well. I'll try again later. See if we can get that puppy on camera. Nope, he's come back. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what was up with that. He was too spooked. So yeah, brief recap of the book so far. Let's see. We've got the elucidated brethren of the something 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 something. Let me see here. Elucidated brethren of the Ebon Knight, 3 doors down, have been gathering up magical items through whatever methods that they can in order to summon a dragon. And they want to summon a dragon so that a hero will, ostensibly they want to summon a dragon so that a hero will come along, slay the dragon, and become king, and thus take control of the local government of Ankh-Morpork. And then, ideally, the Supreme Grand Master of the Elucidated Brethren can take control of the king. That part hasn't really been explained, how the Supreme Grand Master thinks that he's going to be able to control the hero that shows up. The would-be king. In the meantime, we've had a young lad from the sticks, well, from a dwarven mining shaft named by the name of Carrot, that has been sent off to Ankh-Morpork to join the Watch and become a man. Everyone else kind of seems pretty... Everyone that knows about the Watch seems pretty hazy on why you would possibly want to do that. We've also had an introduction to Captain Vimes, who is basically a hopeless alcoholic at this point. Seems to need to drink in order to function. And that's roughly where we're at. The dragon has been summoned briefly, burnt one thief to dust, ash, I suppose, and then vanished when the magical items ran out of juice, so to speak. And so the elucidated brethren are trying to find more magical items, both more items and more magical. That's roughly where we're at. There, now everybody's caught up. Eriker will not be joining us tonight. She is otherwise occupied. I'm going to turn off one of the lights here. Hey Google, turn off kitchen lights.
Got it. Turning off 3 lights.
There we go. That was kind of blinding. Yeah, so where did we leave off? We had, yes. Carrot was out patrolling with one Corporal Nobby, who was showing Carrot the ropes, so to speak. Nobby's a strange character that I'm going to have to try to remember how to handle the voice of. But where we left them off, Carrot had just been exposed to some dwarfs that were drinking and fighting, and that seemed to shock him pretty thoroughly. Yeah, did I leave anything out? Anyone remember any details I forgot? Let me try to summon the puppy one more time. Benedict. Come here, pup. Come here. You sit. You want these? Pretty tasty, right? Want another one? I'm trying to... Here, let me back up a bit. Oh, Finn. Finn. Come here. Come here, puppy. He's real shy right now. Another? Another? Well, off he goes, looking over his tail at me. You got a glimpse of him, right? He had a big day. We took him shopping and he got a little bit of sensory overload. There was lots of people and lots of sound, and the place we went shopping was pretty close to an airport, so there were constantly planes flying overhead, and it was kind of an outdoor mall. So I think the combination of all of that kind of had him overloaded, so I think he just kind of wants to curl up on the couch now. Farmhouse is thinking about maybe the meeting with the Thieves Guild head getting arrested. Yeah, that's sort of a small detail, but yeah, that was entertaining. All right, why don't we get started? No one knows why dwarfs, who at home in the mountains lead quiet, orderly lives, forget it all when they move to the big city. Something comes over even the most blameless iron ore miner, and prompts him to wear chainmail all the time, carry an axe, change his name to something like Grab Throat Shin Kicker, and drink himself into surly oblivion. It's probably because they do live such quiet and orderly lives back home. After all, probably the first thing a young dwarf wants to do when he hits the big city, after 70 years of working for his father at the bottom of a pit, is have a big drink and then hit someone. The fight was one of those enjoyable dwarfish fights with about 100 participants and 150 alliances. The screams, oaths, and the ringing of axes on iron helmets mingled with the sounds of a drunken group by the fireplace, who, another dwarfish custom, were singing about gold. Nobby bumped into the back of Carrot, who was watching the scene with horror.
"Look, it's like this every night in here,"
said Nobby.
"Don't interfere, that's what the sergeant says. It's their ethnic folkways or something. You don't go messing with ethnic folkways."
But, Carrot stuttered, "these are my people. Sort of. It's shameful acting like this. What must everyone think?"
"We think they're mean little buggers," said Nobby. "Now come on!"
But Carrot had waded into the scuffling mass. He cupped his hands around his mouth and bellowed something in a language Nobby didn't understand. Practically any language, including his native one, would have fitted that description, but in this case it was dwarfish. I'm going to do my best with this, but I don't speak dwarfish, so, forgive me if I pronounce things wrong. What am I missing here? Grab Throat Shin Kicker would be a good roller derby name. Farmhouse agrees. No, you got it wrong. It's not dwarves of Discworld, Farmhouse. It's dwarfs. DWARFS. It's not Tolkien's adaptation. All right. So what Carrot said was,
Gerduzg, Axd Ezem Keberk Zim.
Footnote 1. Literally, good day, good day. What is all of this that is going on here, in this place? The fighting stopped. 100 bearded faces glared up at Carrot's stooped figure, their annoyance mingled with surprise. A battered tankard bounced off his breastplate. Carrot reached down and picked up a struggling figure without apparent effort.
"Juk Yitruz T Rud Estuza Hrud z dezek drez huk. Huz zo kruk betuzd gekek mek betuz te bek tik kdruk kehikt de adthuk. What do you think? How am I handling that? Footnote 2. Listen, sunshine. Literally, the stare of the great hot eye in the sky whose fiery gaze penetrates the mouth of the cavern. I don't want to have to give anyone a smacking, so if you play Batuz with me, I'll play Batuz with you, okay? Now after Batuz, we have footnote 3. A popular dwarfish game which consists of standing a few feet apart and throwing large rocks at one another's head. And then after okay, we've got footnote 4. Literally, all correctly beamed and propped. That's the end of the footnotes for this page. Footnotes within footnotes within footnotes. Oh boy. Farmo says beautiful language. Sharkies, it's like the ruin names in Skyrim, lots of Zeds. No dwarf had ever heard so many old-tongue words from the mouth of anyone over 4 feet high. They were astonished. Carrot lowered the offending dwarf to the floor. There were tears in his eyes. "You're dwarfs," he said. "Dwarfs shouldn't be acting like this. Look at you all. Aren't you ashamed?" 100 bone-hard jaws dropped. "I mean, look at you." Carrot shook his head. "Can you imagine what your poor, white-bearded old mother, slaving away back in her little hole, wondering how her son is getting on tonight, can you imagine what she'd think if she saw you now? Your own dear mothers, who first showed you how to use a pickaxe." Nobby, standing by the doorway in terror and amazement, was aware of a growing chorus of nose-blowings and muffled sobs as Carrot went on. "She's probably thinking, 'I expect he's having a quiet game of dominoes or something.'" A nearby dwarf, wearing a helmet encrusted with 6-inch spikes, started to cry gently into his beer. "And I bet it's a long time since any of you wrote her a letter, too, and you promised to write every week." Nobby absent-mindedly took out a grubby handkerchief and passed it to a dwarf who was leaning against the wall, shaking with grief. "Now then," said Carrot kindly, "I don't want to be hard on anyone, but I shall be coming past here every night from now on, and I shall expect to see proper standards of dwarf behavior. I know what it's like when you're far from home, but there's no excuse for this sort of thing." He touched his helmet. "Gruk-tuk." Footnote 1. Evening, all. Literally, felicitations to all present at the closing of the day. End of footnote. He gave them all a bright smile, and half walked, half crouched, out of the bar. As he emerged into the street, Nobby tapped him on the arm. "Don't you ever do anything like that to me again," he fumed. "You're in the city watch. Don't give me any more of this law business." "But it is very important," said Carrot seriously, trotting after Nobby as he sidled into a narrower street. "Not as important as staying in one piece," said Nobby. I'm having trouble with his voice tonight. "Dwarf bars. If you've got any sense, my lad, you'll come in here and shut up." Carrot stared at the building they had reached. It was set back a little from the mud of the street. The sounds of considerable drinking were coming from inside. A battered sign hung over the door. It showed a drum. "A tavern, is it?" said Carrot thoughtfully. "Open at this hour?" "Don't see why not," said Nobby. pushing open the door. Damn useful idea. The Mended Drum. And more drinking? Carrot thumbed hastily through the book. I hope so, said Nobby. He nodded to the troll who was employed by the drum as a splatter. Footnote 2. Like a bouncer, but trolls use more force. End of footnote. Evening, detritus. Just showing the new lad the ropes. The troll grunted and waved a crusted arm. The inside of the Mended Drum is now legendary as the most famous disreputable tavern on the Discworld, and such a feature of the city that, after recent unavoidable redecorations, the new owner spent days recreating the original patina of dirt, soot, and less identifiable substances on the walls, and imported a ton of pre-rotted rushes for the floor. The drinkers were the usual bunch of heroes, cutthroats, mercenaries, desperados, and villains, and only microscopic analysis could have told which was which. Does that sound familiar to any D&D players? Thick coils of smoke hung in the air, perhaps to avoid touching the walls. Farmo says, rolled a 20 on his oratory check. Sharky's long speech to a rough crowd about their mothers to make them cry in their beer. An old but amusing trope. Was it old when this book was written, I wonder? How far back do you think that trope goes? Because this is 1989 when this was written. I imagine there was probably something similar in like a Leslie Nielsen film or something. Whether it went before that, I don't know. The conversation dipped fractionally as the two guards wandered in, and then rose to its former level. A couple of cronies waved to Nobby. He realized that Carrot was busy. "What you doing?" he said. "And no talking about mothers, right?" "I'm taking notes," said Carrot grimly. "I've got a notebook." "That's the ticket," said Nobby. "You like this place. I comes here every night for my supper." "How do you spell contravention?" said Carrot, turning over a page. "I don't," said Nobby, pushing through the crowds. A rare impulse to generosity lodged in his mind. "What do you want to drink?" "I don't think that would be very appropriate," said Carrot. "Anyway, strong drink is a mocker." He was aware of a penetrating stare in the back of his neck, and turned and looked into the big, bland, and gentle face of an orangutan. It was seated at the bar with a pint mug and a bowl of peanuts in front of it. It tilted its glass amicably towards Carrot and then drank deeply and noisily by apparently forming its lower lip into a sort of prehensile funnel and making a noise like a canal being drained. Carrot nudged Nobby. "There's a monk," he began. "Don't say it," said Nobby urgently. "Don't say the word. It's the librarian. Works up at the university. Always comes down here for a nightcap of an evening." "And people don't object?" "Why should they?" said Nobby. "He always stands around, just like everyone else." Farmo says, "I feel like westerns and maybe like Conan-style stuff." Very colorful description. Ook. Carrot turned and looked at the ape again. A number of questions pressed for attention, such as, where does it keep its money? The librarian caught his gaze, misinterpreted it, and gently pushed the bowl of peanuts towards him. Carrot pulled himself to his full, impressive height and consulted his notebook. The afternoon spent reading the Laws and Ordinances had been well spent. "Who is the owner, proprietor, lessee, or landlord of these premises?" he said to Nobby.
"What's it?"
said the small guard.
"Landlord? Well, I suppose Charlie here is in charge tonight. Why?"
He indicated a large, heavy-set man, whose face was a net of scars. Its owner paused in the act of spreading the dirt more evenly around some glasses by means of a damp cloth, of course, and gave Carrot a conspiratorial wink.
"Charlie, this is Carrot,"
said Nobby.
"He's stuffing along of rosy palms."
"What, every night?" said Charlie. Carrot cleared his throat. "If you are in charge," he intoned, "then it is my duty to inform you that you are under arrest."
"Arrest of what, friend?"
said Charlie, still polishing. "Under arrest," said Carrot, "with a view to the presentation of charges, to wit, 1. That on or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did A. serve, or B. did cause to serve alcoholic beverages after the hours of 12 midnight, contrary to the provisions of the Public Alehouses Opening Act of 1678, and 1 on or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did serve or cause to serve alcoholic beverages in containers other than of a size and capacity laid down by aforesaid Act, and 2 that on or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did allow customers to carry unsheathed edge weapons of a length greater than 7 inches, contrary to Section 3 of said Act, and 2 that on or about 18th Grune, at a place called the Mended Drum, Filigree Street, you did serve alcoholic beverages in premises apparently unlicensed for the sale and/or consumption of said beverages, contrary to Section 3 of the aforesaid Act." Give me a second, I need to catch my breath. Feeling a little lightheaded after that. Whew. Okay, where was I? There was dead silence as Carrot turned over another page and went on. I thought I was done. I should have known better. This hits differently reading it out loud. "It is also my duty to inform you that it is my intention to lay evidence before the justices with a view to the consideration of charges under the Public Foregatherings Gambling Act 1567, the Licensed Premises Hygiene Acts of 1433, 1456, 1463, 1465, and 1470 through 1690, and also," he glanced sideways at the librarian, who knew trouble when he heard it coming, and was hurriedly trying to finish his drink, "the Domestic and Domesticated Animals Care and Protection Act, 1673. The silence that followed held a rare quality of breathless anticipation as the assembled company waited to see what would happen next. Charlie carefully put down the glass, whose smears had been buffed up to a brilliant shine, and looked down at Nobby. Nobby was endeavoring to pretend that he was totally alone and had no connection whatsoever with anyone who might be standing next to him, and coincidentally wearing an identical uniform. "What did he mean, justices?" he said to Nobby. "There ain't no justices." Nobby gave a terrified shrug. "New, is he?" said Charlie. "Make it easy on yourself," said Carrot. "This is nothing personal, you understand," said Charlie to Nobby. "It's just a was name. Had a wizard in here the other night talking about it. Sort of bendy educational thing, you know?" He appeared to think for a moment. "Learning curve. That was it. It's a learning curve. Detritus, get your big stony arse over here a moment." Generally, about this time in the Mended Drum, someone throws a glass. And in fact, this now happened. Captain Vimes ran up Short Street, the longest in the city, which shows the famous Morpork subtle sense of humor in a nutshell, with Sergeant Colon stumbling along behind, protesting. Nobby was outside the drum, hopping from one foot to another. In times of danger, he had a way of propelling himself from place to place without apparently moving through the intervening space, which could put any ordinary matter transporter to shame. "He's fighting in there," he stuttered, grabbing the captain's arm. "All by himself?" said the captain. "No, with everyone," shouted Nobby, hopping from one foot to the other. "Oh." Conscience said, "There's 3 of you. He's wearing the same uniform. He's one of your men. Remember poor old Gaskin." Another part of his brain, the hated, despicable part, which had nevertheless enabled him to survive in the Guards these past 10 years, said, "It's rude to butt in. We'll wait until he's finished, and then ask him if he wants any assistance. Besides, it isn't watch policy to interfere in fights. It's a lot simpler to go in afterwards and arrest anyone recumbent." There was a crash as a nearby window burst outwards and deposited a stunned fighter on the opposite side of the street. "I think," said the captain carefully, "that we'd better take prompt action." "That's right," said Sergeant Colon. "A man could get hurt standing here." They sidled cautiously a little way down the street, where the sound of splintering wood and breaking glass wasn't so overpowering, and carefully avoided one another's eyes. There was the occasional scream from within the tavern, and every now and again a mysterious ringing noise, as though someone was hitting a gong with their knee. I wonder what that might be. They stood in a little pool of embarrassed silence. "You had your holidays this year, Sergeant?" said Captain Vimes eventually, rocking back and forth on his heels. "Yes, sir. Sent the wife to Quirm last month, sir, to see her aunt." "Very nice at this time of year, I'm told." "Yes, sir." "All the geraniums and whatnot." A figure tumbled out of an upper window and crumpled on the cobbles. "That's where they've got the floral sundial, isn't it?" said the captain desperately. "Yes, sir. Very nice, sir. All done with little flowers, sir." There was a sound like something hitting something else repeatedly with something heavy and wooden. Vimes winced. "I don't think he'd have been happy in the watch, sir," said the sergeant in a kindly voice. The door of the Mended Drum had been torn off during riots so often that specially tempered hinges had recently been installed, and the fact that the next tremendous crash tore the whole door and door frame out of the wall, only showed that quite a lot of money had been wasted. A figure in the midst of the wreckage tried to raise itself on its elbows, groaned, and slumped back. "Well, it would seem that it's all," the captain began, and Nobby said, "It's that bloody troll!" "What?" said Vimes. "It's the troll, the one they have on the door." They advanced with extreme caution. It was indeed Detritus the Splatter. It is very difficult to hurt a creature that is, to all intents and purposes, a mobile stone. Someone seemed to have managed it, though. The fallen figure was groaning like a couple of bricks being crushed together. "That's a turn-up for the books," said the sergeant vaguely. All three of them turned and peered at the brightly lit rectangle where the doorway had been. Things had definitely quietened down a bit in there. "You don't think," said the sergeant, "that he's winning, do you?" The captain thrust out his jaw. "We owe it to our colleague and fellow officer," he said, "to find out." There was a whimper from behind them. They turned and saw Nobby hopping on one leg and clutching a foot. "What's up with you, man?" said Vimes. Nobby made agonized noises. Sergeant Colin began to understand. Although cautious obsequiousness was the general tenor of watch behavior, there wasn't one member of the entire squad who hadn't, at some time, been at the wrong end of Detritus's fists. Nobby had merely tried to play catch-up in the very best traditions of policemen everywhere. "He went and kicked him in a rocks, sir," he said. "Disgraceful," said the captain vaguely. He hesitated. "Do trolls have rocks?" he said. "Take it from me, sir." "Good grief," Vimes said. "Dame Nature moves in strange ways, doesn't she?" "Right you are, sir," said the sergeant obediently. "And now," said the captain, drawing his sword, "forward!" "Yes, sir." "This means you too, sergeant," the captain added. "Yes, sir." It was possibly the most circumspect advance in the history of military maneuvers, right down at the bottom end of the scale that things like the charge of the Light Brigade are at the top of. They peered cautiously around the ravished doorway. There were a number of people sprawled across the tables, or what remained of the tables. Those who were still conscious looked unhappy about it. Carrot stood in the middle of the floor. His rusty chainmail was torn, his helmet was missing, he was swaying a little from side to side, and one eye was already starting to swell, but he recognized the captain, dropped the feebly protesting customer he was holding, and threw a salute. "Beg to report 31 offenses of making an affray, sir, and 56 cases of riotous behavior, 41 offenses of obstructing an officer of the watch in the execution of his duty, 13 offenses of assault with a deadly weapon, 6 cases of malicious lingering, and Corporal Nobby hasn't even shown me one rope yet." He fell backwards, breaking a table. Captain Vimes coughed. He wasn't at all sure what you were supposed to do next. As far as he knew, the watch had never been in this position before. "I think you should get him a drink, Sergeant," he said. "Yes, sir." "And get me one, too." "Yes, sir." "Have one yourself, why don't you?" "Yes, sir." "And you, Corporal, will you please—" "What are you doing?" Searching the body, sir, said Nobby quickly, straightening up. For incriminating evidence and that. In their money pouches? Nobby thrust his hands behind his back. You never know, sir, he said. The sergeant had located a miraculously unbroken bottle of spirits in the wreckage and forced a lot of its contents between Carrot's lips. What are we going to do with all this lot, Captain? He said over his shoulder. I haven't the faintest idea, said Vimes, sitting down. The watch jail was just about big enough for 6 very small people, which were usually the only sort to be put in it. Whereas these... He looked around him desperately. There was Nork the Impaler, lying under a table and making bubbling noises. There was Big Henry. There was Grabber Simmons, one of the most feared barroom fighters in the city. All in all, there were a lot of people it wouldn't pay to be near when they woke up. We could cut their throats, sir, said Nobby, veteran of a score of residual battlefields. He had found an unconscious fighter who was about the right size and was speculatively removing his boots, which looked quite new and about the right size. That would be entirely wrong, said Vimes. He wasn't sure how you actually went about cutting a throat. It had never hitherto been an option. No, he said. I think perhaps we'll let them off with a caution. Charlie Marley 1990 posting some hearts. Hello, we're reading Guards Guards by Sir Terry Pratchett. There was a groan from under the bench. Besides, he went on quickly, we should get our fallen comrade to a place of safety as soon as possible. Good point, said the sergeant. He took a swig of the spirits for the sake of his nerves. The two of them managed to sling Carrot between them and guide his wobbling legs up the steps. Vimes, collapsing under the weight, looked around for Nobby. Corporal Nobbs, he rasped, why are you kicking people when they're down? Safest way, sir, said Nobby. Nobby had long ago been told about fighting fair and not striking a fallen opponent, and had then given some creative thought to how these rules applied to someone 4 feet tall with the muscle tone of an elastic band. Well, stop it. I want you to caution the felons, said the captain. How, sir? Well, you... Captain Vimes stopped. He was blowed if he knew. He'd never done it. Just do it, he snapped. Surely I don't have to tell you everything. Nobby was left alone at the top of the stairs. A general muttering and groaning from the floor indicated that people were waking up. Nobby thought quickly. He shook an admonitory cheese straw of a finger. Let that be a lesson to you, he said. Don't do it again. And ran for it. Up in the darkness of the rafters, the librarian scratched himself reflectively. Life was certainly full of surprises. He was going to watch developments with interest. He shelled a thoughtful peanut with his feet and swung away into the darkness. Wow. Is everyone at all able to understand what I'm saying when I'm doing Nobby's voice? If you can't, that would be a little fitting, I guess. I don't know if you're entirely supposed to understand Nobby, but for the sake of clarity, it'd probably help if you could. All right, here we go. The Sharkies say, yes, it's perfect for Nobby. All right. Okay, glad to hear it. Let's continue. The Supreme Grand Master raised his hands. are the thuribles of destiny ritually chastised, that evil and loose thinking may be banished from this sanctified circle? Yep. The Supreme Grand Master lowered his hands. Yep, he said. Yep, said Brother Dunnikin happily. Done it myself. You are supposed to say, Yea, O Supreme One, said the Supreme Grand Master. Honestly, I've told you enough times, if you're not all going to enter into the spirit of the thing. Yes, you listen to what the Supreme Grand Master tells you, said Brother Watchtower, glaring at the errant brother. Wait, did I? Oh, that was Brother Dunnikin. I did that voice wrong. I spent hours chastising them thuribles, muttered Brother Dunnikin. Carry on, O Supreme Grand Master, said Brother Watchtower. Very well, then, said the Grand Master. Tonight, we'll try another experimental summoning. I trust you have obtained suitable raw materials, brothers? Scrubbed and scrubbed, not that you get any thanks. All sorted out, Supreme Grand Master, said Brother Watchtower. It was, the Grand Master conceded, a slightly better collection. The brothers had certainly been busy. Pride of place was given to an illuminated tavern sign, whose removal, the Grand Master thought, should have merited some sort of civic award. At the moment, the E was a ghastly pink and flashed on and off at random. I got that, said Brother Watchtower proudly. They thought I was mending it or something, but I took my screwdriver and I... Yes, well done, said the Supreme Grand Master. Shows initiative. Thank you, Supreme Grand Master, beamed Brother Watchtower. Knuckles rubbed raw, red and cracked. Never even got my $3 back either, no one so much as says... And now, said the Supreme Grand Master, taking up the book, we will begin to commence. Shut up, Brother Dunnikin. We will begin to commence. Every town in the multiverse, has a part that is something like Ankh-Morpork's Shades. It's usually the oldest part, its lanes faithfully following the original tracks of medieval cows going down to the river, and they all have names like the Shambles, the Rookery, Snig's Alley. Most of Ankh-Morpork is like that in any case. But the Shades was even more so, a sort of black hole of bred-in-the-brickwork lawlessness. Put it like this, even the criminals were afraid to walk the streets. The Watch didn't set foot in it. Pharma says, that should be a legal offense, begin to commence. They were accidentally setting foot in it now. Not very reliably. It had been a trying night, and they had been steadying their nerves. They were now so steady that all four were relying on the other three to keep them upright and steer. Captain Vimes passed the bottle back to the sergeant. Shame on. He thought for a bit. You, he said. Drun in front of a super officer. The sergeant tried to speak, but could only come out with a series of S's. Put yourself on a charge, said Captain Vimes, rebounding off a wall. He glared at the brickwork. This wall assaulted me, he declared. Ha! Think you're tough, eh? Well, I'm an officer of the law, I'll have you know, and we don't take any. He blinked slowly, once or twice, What's it we don't take any of, sarn't? He said. Chances, sir? Said Colin. No. It's other stuff. Never mind. Anyway, we don't take any of it from anyone. Vague visions were trotting through his mind of a room full of criminal types, people that had jeered at him, people whose very existence had offended and taunted him for years, lying around and groaning. He was a little unclear how it had happened, but some almost forgotten part of him, some much younger Vimes, with a bright shining breastplate and big hopes, a Vimes he thought the alcohol had long ago drowned, was suddenly restless. Shall he tell you something, sir? He said. Sir? The four of them bounced gently off another wall and began another slow, crabwise waltz across the alley. This city, sarn't. This city is a woman, sarn't. So 'tis. A woman, sarn't. Ancient rattled old beauty, sarn't. But if you fall in love with her, then she kicks you in the teeth. Woman? Said Colin. He screwed up his sweating face with the effort of thought. 'S 8 miles wide, sir. 'S got a river in it. Lots of houses and stuff, sir, he reasoned. Ah. Vimes waggled an unsteady finger at him. Never said it was a small woman, did I? Be fair. He waved the bottle. Another random thought exploded in the froth of his mind. We showed 'em anyway, he said excitedly as the four of them began an oblique shuffle back to the opposite wall. Showed them, didn't we? Taught them a forget they won't lessen in a hurry, eh? 'S right, said the sergeant, but not very enthusiastically. He was still wondering about his superior officer's sex life. But Vimes was in the kind of mood that didn't need encouragement. Ha! He shouted at the dark alleyways. Don't like it, eh? Taste of your own medicine thingy. Well, now you can boodle in your trems. He threw the empty bottle into the air. 2 o'clock, he yelled, and all's well. Boodle in your trems. Which was astonishing news to the various shadowy figures who had been silently shadowing the four of them for some time. Only sheer puzzlement had prevented them making their attentions sharp and plain. These people are clearly guards, they were thinking. They've got the right helmets and everything, and yet here they are in the shades. So, they were being watched with the fascination that a pack of wolves might focus on a handful of sheep who had not only trotted into the clearing, but were making playful butts and baaing noises. The outcome was, of course, going to be mutton, but in the meantime, inquisitiveness gave a stay of execution. Carrot raised his muzzy head. Where are we? He groaned. On our way home, said the sergeant. He looked up at the pitted, worm-eaten and knife-scored sign above them. "We're just going down. Going down. Going down," he squinted. "Sweetheart Lane." "Sweetheart Lane's not on the way home," slurred Nobby. "Well, you wouldn't want to go down Sweetheart Lane. It's in the shades. Catch us going down Sweetheart Lane." There was a crowded moment in which realization did the icy work of a good night's sleep and several pints of black coffee. The three of them, by unspoken agreement, clustered up towards Carrot. What are we gonna do, Captain?" said Colin. We could call for help," said the captain uncertainly. "What, here?" "You've got a point." "I reckon we must have turned left out of Silver Street instead of right," quavered Nobby. "Well, that's one mistake we won't make again in a hurry," said the captain. Then he wished he hadn't. They could hear footsteps. Somewhere off to their left, there was a snigger. "We must form a square," said the captain. They all tried to form a point. "Hey, what was that?" said Sergeant Colin. "What?" "There it was again. Sort of a leathery sound." Captain Vimes tried not to think about hoods and garroting. There were, he knew, many gods. There was a god for every trade. There was a beggar's god, a whore's goddess, a thief's god, probably even an assassin's god. He wondered whether there was, somewhere in that vast pantheon, a god who would look kindly on hard-pressed and fairly innocent law enforcement officers who were quite definitely about to die. There probably wasn't, he thought bitterly. Something like that wasn't stylish enough for gods. Catch any god worrying about any poor sod trying to do his best for a handful of dollars a month. Not them. Gods went overboard for smart bastards whose idea of a day's work was prizing the ruby eye of the earwig king out of its socket. Not for some unimaginative sap who just pounded the pavement every night. "More sort of slithery," said the sergeant, who liked to get things right. And then there was a sound. Perhaps a volcanic sound, or the sound of a boiling geyser, but at any rate a long, dry roar of a sound, like the bellows in the forges of the Titans. But it was not so bad as the light, which was blue-white, and the sort of light to print the pattern of your eyeball's blood vessels on the back of the inside of your skull. That's some wordplay there. They both went on for hundreds of years, and then instantly stopped. The dark aftermath was filled with purple images, and, once the ears regained an ability to hear, a faint clinkery sound. The guards remained perfectly still for some time. "Well, well," said the captain weakly. After a further pause, he said, very clearly, every consonant slotting perfectly into place, "Sergeant, take some men and investigate that. Will you?" "Investigate what, sir?" said Colin. But it had already dawned on the captain that if the sergeant took some men, it would leave him, Captain Vimes, all alone. "No, I've got a better idea. We'll all go," he said firmly. They all went. Now that their eyes were used to the darkness, they could see an indistinct red glow ahead of them. it turned out to be a wall, cooling rapidly. Bits of calcined brickwork were falling off as they contracted, making little pinging noises. That wasn't the worst bit. The worst bit was what was on the wall. They stared at it. They stared at it for a long time. It was only an hour or two till dawn, and no one even suggested trying to find their way back in the dark. They waited by the wall. At least it was warm. They tried not to look at it. Eventually, Colin stretched uneasily and said, "Chin up, Captain. It could have been worse." Vimes finished the bottle. It didn't have any effect. There were some types of sobriety that you just couldn't budge. "Yes," he said, "it could have been us." That puts us at 8 o'clock, and there is actually a page break here. Scene break. Let me just see how long this next bit is, but I think that's probably a good place to stop. Yeah, I think we can stop there. Oh boy. There were some moments in that, I want to say chapter, but that's not quite right because, again, no chapters in this book. Farmos agrees, probably a good place to end it. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. We started a little earlier today. Carrot reading off the offenses of the Mended Drum was... wow. And that whole fight, too. I feel like I still need to find Vimes' voice. I feel like I'm just kind of sticking close to the narrator's voice for that, for his. And I feel like he deserves a better voice, but for some reason I just haven't fallen into it yet. Farmos believes in an earlier book, maybe the first book, it was called The Broken Drum. Yeah, it might have been one book and then switched. And then it was exploded. So what did everyone think of tonight's episode? Any favorite bits in there? Some parts of this book I feel like come across quite well when read out loud, and some parts I feel like it's probably hard to catch the jokes when it's read out loud. Because occasionally, like, when I'm reading these books, sometimes I need to, like, double back on a page to, like, figure out exactly what he was saying or what the joke was. Sharkies love the bar fight scene from the three guards' perspective. You imagine it so much rowdier than if it was actually described more in depth. Yeah, people getting thrown out of second story windows, the door coming off the hinges, someone comes out well, I think someone came out both a ground floor window and the second story window, and then you had someone being struck repeatedly with something wooden. Pharma says, I think it does a good job of starting to get the dynamics between them. Yes, this bit here, I think, was where you started to get the guards coming together, united by, difficult circumstances. In one D&D game I ran, we had a pretty great bar fight. I set it up so that I included as many bar fight tropes as I could possibly think of. There was, barrels at the top of a staircase to be rolled down, and lots of mugs for throwing. There was a chandelier for swinging on. Sharky say it's also just the first scene with all four together. Yes, that's true. But it had all four of them together, and then it gave them adversaries and a need for survival to keep them together.
I feel like after we're done here tonight, I'm going to need to eat something and then fall asleep very quickly because I'm going to run out of energy real fast. Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone got sent headfirst down the bar in that tavern fight, smashing through glasses and things. There was a little old granny that got up to leave at one point, and the whole fight paused for like a full round as she left, and then as soon as she was out the doors, it resumed. That was fun. Gotta redo that game at some point. And Robot Kyo's character just flirted with a barmaid throughout, didn't actually participate at all, I think, and then they left together. Oh boy. That's what you were about to say? Oh, right, that's what you said. Yeah. Alright. Well, I think that's it for me for tonight. I hope everyone's got some kind of Thanksgiving plans for the weekend. Foremost and I have 2 days of Thanksgiving. It was originally going to be 3, but thankfully one of them got postponed until the following weekend, which will make life a little easier for us. But there's going to be lots of food, I'm sure. Hopefully we survive visiting family and whatnot. But thankfully, yeah. Oh boy. Okay, well, speaking of food, I actually do need to eat something. I'm getting pretty hungry. So I'm going to call it there. I'm gonna say goodnight. I hope everyone enjoyed. I hope everyone has a good weekend, and I'll be back. Felicitations at the closing of the day, literally. Yes, I hope everything is shored up and beamed properly. We'll be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, or whatever that translates to wherever you happen to be. I'm pretty sure most of us here are at Pacific. But yeah, have a good weekend. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody that's in Canada. And see you next week. Bye-bye.